Hey, it's Adrian. Today I'm going to be doing a full review of the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 4. Now, if this is going to be your first foldable device, this review is going to help you determine if this is the right phone for you. If you already own the S22 Ultra like I do, I'm going to compare the Z Fold 4 to the S22 Ultra in a couple of areas, and you can decide if it's worth replacing your S22 Ultra with the Z Fold 4. So let's get started. If you're coming from the S22 Ultra, you may notice the weight increase just for a week or two. I've gotten used to the weight increase on the Z Fold 4. So the S22 Ultra comes in at 229 grams or half a pound, and the Z Fold 4 comes in at 263 grams or 0.58 pounds. If we take a look at a top view of both phones, so when you measure the width across the hinge, it's about double the thickness of the S22 Ultra from the top. Now, taking a look at speakers, the Z Fold 4 has a set of speakers and it's a pretty wide grill here. On the Ultra, you have a speaker right at the top here, and if you look at the bottom of both phones, you can see the speaker grill is the same wide as it is on the top, but on the S22 Ultra, it's about half the width. So the sound is much fuller, much more powerful coming from the Z Fold 4. Looking at the back of both phones, so you can see that there is something missing. So while the cameras on the Z Fold 4 are quite capable, if you do like to take, those extra zoomed in shots, you don't have a 230mm telephoto lens like you do on the S22 Ultra. When it comes to overall ergonomics, the S22 Ultra, you can see if you look at the edges, they're a bit more sharp. So when you've been using the phone for a long time, you do notice that it's pressing into your skin like you can see in the corner here. Now when you look at the Fold 4, pretty much every part of this phone is curved, so it's not something that you really notice. So here's some quick specs for those of you who are interested. Feel free to pause it and review. But basically you have Gorilla Glass Victus Plus front and back. It is an AMOLED screen at 120 Hz, HDR 10 Plus, and 1200 nits of peak brightness. The PPI on the inside screen is 374, and on the outside screen it's 402 PPI. So this phone is running with the newest Snapdragon chip, which is the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1. While this phone does have an IPX8 rating, which allows it to be in up to 1.5 meters or about 5 feet of water for up to 30 minutes, there is no official dust rating. This phone supports up to 25 watts of fast charging, but I've not been able to achieve that, and I'll show that later in the video. So the biggest draw of the Z Fold 4, the biggest advantage obviously, is having easy access to such a large screen to get a lot done. And I didn't think that I was going to be using the cover display all that much because, why would you when you have such a large screen? But I've actually found myself using this quite a lot because I'm able to get a lot done. And it's only when I want like an immersive experience in terms of watching videos, taking photos, and I want to get framing right, or like gaming, that I ever need to go into that inside panel. Now, I also mentioned that this is a two-handed operation. So, you have to be a bit intentional, when you're going to be using it on the inside panel. But a lot of the times, I'm able to get what I need to get done day to day, in terms of texting, replying to the occasional email, reading the news. It's easy for me to just go in, and the text is, sufficiently large enough that it's not a problem for me. Now, the only area where I would say, it could be an issue to some is, let's say I go into search here and I need to type or text. So, depending on how big your fingers are, this could be a bit cramped, could be a bit tight for you. But what I've done is, so you can see, I'm gonna just try texting, how are you? And, I didn't hit that exactly over there. But what I've found works really well on this smaller screen is, I'll just do the swipe gestures to type, and that works really well, and I can easily span all the way from the end of the keyboard to the other side one-handed, and that works really well. The inner display really does let you multitask to, whatever type of workflow pattern that you have. So sometimes, I'm on a website and I'm, looking up information, but then I may also be on another window or tab chatting to someone while I'm referencing information, and, I can easily do that by just, having a second browser window open, and, I can have chat going in here and, referencing material on the other side of the screen, or I could be, just chatting or instant messaging someone. So you really have a lot of functionality in terms of the main screen, and there's a lot of experimental features as well, so that, you could have floating windows and, maybe up to 4 windows, transparencies, and things like that. One really cool thing that I found, and it's kind of like an experimental feature, is that while I have the menu open here, say I was chatting with someone to, figure out dinner plans, I can press and hold the Instagram icon and of course drag it there or drag it here. If I drag it here, I'm splitting the screen. Obviously, I can kind of, narrow it down a little bit more. But what if I want most of the screen here and I just want the chat box to be, much smaller? Well, the way to do that is like this. I can open Instagram, and then from the top here, I can drag down and I can have a very small window. And then I can just move that wherever I want on the page. In addition to that, I can go ahead and I can click this option here, click here, and then I can change the opacity so it's not very bright, or it's not taking up much of the screen, and I can still see what's going on under there. So this can be kind of helpful if you have like a website open, you're looking at sports scores, stocks, or things like that. And of course, if you want, you can just go back into the regular flip screen. Now you do have some other options here. So when you do size it down, you see you can just put it in the corner there as a shortcut and then just tap it to bring it back. So, whenever your phone dings. All right, so to enable that feature, what you're gonna do is you're gonna go into settings up here, and in search, you're just gonna type in labs. When that comes up, you're gonna click on labs under advanced features, and you can see there's an option here for labs. Click on that and go ahead and enable this option that says swipe up for pop-up view. So you can see it showing exactly what I was doing, where I could swipe down and resize. Now, the other option you're going to want to do is multi-window for all apps, and that says allow all apps to open in pop-up view or split screen, including apps that haven't been designed for these layouts. So you can kind of force it, an app that wasn't programmed for that to behave in that way. So this phone does have what Samsung calls flex mode, and you can see right now the panel is completely open and I have videos on the side here that I could watch. But if I fold it, you can see those videos automatically shifted down to the bottom. If I unfold it, then they come back up. So I think the number of apps that support this are quite limited. Obviously, this is Samsung's TV Plus app, and it is supported here. Another thing that I want to point out in terms of screen options is you can see on the cover screen, there's no Call of Duty or Genshin Impact on this front screen. But if I go ahead and open up the main screen, those app icons are there. So the phone does let you customize the cover screen and the inner screen to be completely different if you like. So you could have the cover screen just for, quick apps or quick app access, and then the inside apps could be kind of your like full screen experiences. If you want your cover screen to mimic exactly what's on the inner display, you would just go into your settings here, go down to home screen, and you can see the first option there says cover screen mirroring. Now if I turn that on and hit apply, you'll see that when I go back to the home screen here and I go to the cover screen, they're exactly the same. So the Call of Duty and Genshin Impact icons are gone, so it lets the cover screen take preference in terms of mirroring. In bright sunlight, you'll have no problems because of the screen's maximum brightness, and it seems pretty on par with the S22 Ultra. If you're a fan of having the always-on display like I am, you can see that it's much smaller on the Z Fold 4. Naturally, it's just a less wide screen. But you also have the option, say you always use this phone in this open display. Once you turn it off, you also have the always-on display on the inside there, if you like. Here's an app that I sometimes use to get access to my laptop when I'm not at home. So you can see this is the size of the display. Obviously, I can, kind of pinch to zoom in and take a look, but it's still, a pretty small display. And if I go to the Fold, you can see it's a much more usable display, and I can zoom in to, see a little bit more information. So that's definitely a huge deal when it comes to remote access. Looking at Instagram on both phones, so you can see on the Fold 4, I have black bars going down the right and left side, and I can just move Instagram to occupy whatever side that I want. But I also have an additional option, and when you're under display and full screen apps, I can scroll all the way down to Instagram here. And instead of 16:9, I can set it to 4:3. Let's just jump right back and using the handy taskbar at the bottom. And you can see that now it's occupying way more of the screen. I still have a little bit of room to play here right and left. And if I completely, want to occupy the majority of the screen, I'll just go back here into full screen apps, scroll down to Instagram once again, and set it to full screen to force it. And now when I go into Instagram, it's occupying the entire screen. And from here you can see it's still a pretty great experience, and it's easy for me to just zoom in, take a quick look, and continue on my way. So you have a lot of flexibility in terms of how you want apps to behave on the Z Fold 4. Playing videos on YouTube, you can see, this is a much better experience because I'm not full screen yet, and I can see much more of the video than on the S22 Ultra. Obviously, I can just put this into full screen. Let's just bring that down here. And if I go to full screen on the Z Fold 4, which do you prefer? Right, because of the aspect ratio here, you're having these big black bars, top and bottom. However, you can rotate the phone, and let's enable the landscape rotation there. And you can see the black bars have reduced, noticeably, and it's a bigger image that way. Using Twitter, you can see everything is really nicely spaced out, and it's a nice type of formatting going on. TikTok, you have videos in the middle, and then you have options on the side. So, the video is pretty much the centerpiece. And on Reddit, images and things like that are much more bigger and at the forefront. So overall, just using social media, it's a real joy to use with this phone. If you've seen this part, please skip ahead. But for those of you who haven't, when you're in the display options, you can see whenever you click on one of these menus on the left side here, you have a sub-menu that pops out there. So if you scroll into screen layout and zoom, multi-view is that option, and you can change how big you want everything to be. I like it pretty small. Now if you go to standard view, this is basically what you would expect to see on any type of Android phone without a folding screen. But to get back into that, let's just go to screen layout, multi-view, and change that zoom level to the bottom, and that's probably going to get you the most screen real estate for productivity. While we're still in display, you also have an option to scroll down to full screen apps, and all of my apps are set to full screen, but you do have the option to change the aspect ratio to 16:9 or 4:3, especially if you're going to be using certain apps only on the cover screen. You'll also want to make sure that you scroll down and go to the taskbar and ensure that it's on, and show recent apps are on as well. And what that's going to do is whenever you're in an app, you can easily go to another app, let's say Instagram, and you can quickly switch between Instagram and YouTube like that. Now, one workaround to that 3-screen layout is to do what I showed a bit earlier and kind of, have a window open, resize it down, and move it somewhere else. Now, this is a bit silly and overkill. I can't ever think why someone would need this, but it is there if you want to do it. Imagine you're watching something on your front cover. So let's open up YouTube, and I'm watching a video on YouTube, but I want to go ahead and fold the display so that I can lay the phone flat and watch something. Well, the problem is that you have to live in an area below 90 degrees, because as soon as you turn or angle this front display to 90 degrees or more, the inner display turns on. And there is no setting that I could find to allow you to get to 90 degrees. Now, luckily, one of my viewers, Arash, pointed out a really cool tip that I'm going to share with you today. So to do the tip, what you're going to do is you're going to open up the front screen, launch into the camera app, click on the selfie mode, and it says take selfies with the rear camera. So we're just going to lift the screen up to 90 degrees exactly, or more if we like. And now that we're in the selfie mode, we're going to exit out, go into YouTube, and we now have the ability to angle this 90 or more, and we can set the phone down perfectly flat and watch it at 90 degrees. So thank you, Arash, for sharing that tip. Looking at the Geekbench results, so the Z Fold 4 did finish the test a few seconds before the S22 Ultra. Single core for the Z Fold 4 is 1318 compared to 1200 on the S22 Ultra. The multi-core score is 3976 on the Fold 4 compared to 3060 on the S22 Ultra. So after 2 games, the temperature still feels pretty manageable. It doesn't feel too hot or too warm. And if I take a temperature reading again, still around 35. So after 2 games, it's doing quite well. Obviously, 2 games is not a big amount of games. Obviously, if I was on here for many hours, I expect it to get a bit warmer. For just light casual gaming every once in a while, it's still quite manageable. Okay, so After a little bit of light gaming on Genshin, I can definitely feel it's getting warmer at the back here. If I do a reading, you can see almost around the 40 degree or 40 Celsius mark. So about 5 degrees warmer than when I was playing Call of Duty. Okay, so taking a look at the temperature after 2 games. So 36, so it went up about 1 degree, not too bad for 2 games at high settings. Okay, so after playing a few minutes of gaming with Genshin, I can feel it's noticeably warmer at the back here. So if I go around here, you can see 39, 40, 41, kind of 44. So it's definitely a bit warmer on the S22 Ultra versus the Z Fold 4, even though I played around the same amount of time, or actually a little bit lower time, and I was playing on full screen on the Z4 Fold. So the GPU and CPU on here are getting taxed a little bit more at high settings than on the Z Fold 4. In Call of Duty Mobile, so this is what the interface looks like on the S22 Ultra and what it looks like on the Z Fold 4 with the larger screen. Now you can see I have a message here where it says to restart Call of Duty. And this is coming up because I started the game on the cover screen, but then I wanted to open the phone and have it show on the main screen. And the game asks that you restart it on your preferred screen. Now, there are some settings in the menu where you can kind of force it, but I noticed that it's kind of hit and miss and the aspect ratio is sometimes really messed up. So it's best to just close the game completely and just start it on the preferred screen. When it came to gaming, so both phones performed excellently, but the Z Fold 4 had the slight edge. So when I ran the Geekbench results, single core and multi-score were higher on the Fold 4, and maybe that doesn't always translate, real time or real world. But when I did play gaming, it felt a little bit smoother. It didn't get as warm as on the S22 Ultra, and of course, having this much more screen space, compared to what you see on there, it makes it much more easier and enjoyable when you're gaming. So in terms of specs, you have this 3 camera layout at the back. So you have a 12 megapixel ultra wide, a 50 megapixel wide angle, and a 10 megapixel that's capable of 3x optical zoom. Now on the front you have another 10 megapixel camera, and on the inside display you have a 4 megapixel camera. In terms of camera performance, so the Fold 4 is borrowing the camera technology from the S22 Ultra, so performance on both phones is really excellent. However, the S22 Ultra does have an edge in my eyes because you have up to 10x optical zoom on here, so those are really crisp, clear images with an optical zoom. On the Z Fold 4, the maximum optical zoom you have is a 3x optical zoom. And when I was taking photos, I did find myself missing having that extra reach, or that 230 millimeter equivalent of a zoom lens that the S22 Ultra has. And ultimately, that's really gonna, be based on your needs. Do you find yourself using a telephoto zoom a lot, or are you going to be okay with a 3x? In my eyes, this is the S22 Ultra is just a better all-around camera experience because you can go from ultra wide to telephoto, where the Z Fold 4 has an advantage over the S22 when it comes to cameras is basically with the camera interface. So having such a wide screen really opens up a bunch of options when it comes to taking photos. So you can see on the left side here it says see your shots straight away, and as I take a photo, it's just auto-populating here, and I can kind of zoom in right here and delete a file if I don't want it. So that's something that you would have to go into the gallery on the S22 Ultra, click it, zoom in, delete it, but you can do that really easily on the Fold. You also have the option to turn on the cover screen preview by tapping that icon there, and what that allows you to do is that you could use the live display on the cover screen to see whatever the rear cameras are seeing. So you can use these rear cameras for high resolution selfies. This can also come in handy if you want to do vlogging or live streaming, because what you could do is if you want to show more of your environment, you can switch to the ultra wide lens on here and you can see much more of the room. And then you can go into telephoto if you want to do that. The other thing, or the other way this could be helpful is, if you're taking a photo of a group of people, or even just one person, everyone can see their framing. You may not even need to tell them, hey, move right, move left. They can see that in real time. Here's an example of some selfie photos that I took using the cover display camera, the rear camera, and the inside camera. Now, I don't recommend using the inside camera ever, but here's an example of what you can expect. When it comes to battery life, it's a little bit challenging to say, but I'll give you my thoughts. So on the S22 Ultra, I know when this phone first came out, a lot of people kind of complained about the battery life, and I made a video to address that. However, I easily get like a day of battery life out of this with my current settings, so I do run it normally with dark mode. I just have it on light mode for this video, and that combination of these things in the background, dark mode, and I normally have my brightness much lower, that comfortably lasts me a day for sure. Now when it comes to the Z Fold 4, it's a bit more challenging because it's really going to depend on how often you use this front screen and how often you use this inner display. So I do find myself using the front screen quite a lot just for general browsing and replying to quick text messages or checking my email. And then when I need to write some kind of a longer message, or anytime I want to watch video like YouTube or Amazon Prime, then I'll go in and I'll use this screen. So it's really going to depend on what percentage of the time you're using the screen or the cover screen, because obviously it takes much more battery life to power this size of screen. Now, in terms of what I normally have running, so I usually have the brightness about halfway. That's usually adequate for me. And I have Wi-Fi on all the time, Bluetooth location, and dark mode. Now, I do turn on mobile data when I go out, but then I also turn off Wi-Fi since I'm not going to be using that. And that's getting me around 6 to 8 hours, general use, some video, very light gaming. So that's about what you can expect. One thing that I want you to keep in mind is don't be surprised if the battery performance is poor when you first get this phone. You can see on my S22 Ultra, under battery, it shows 82% and it shows that it's in great status. Now, the S22 Ultra, I've had it for a while and the phone's learned my usage patterns and optimized the battery for that. You can see on the Fold 4, it still says learning usage patterns. So during this period, the phone is still learning how I'm using it, then it's going to optimize the battery life. But keep in mind that when you first get a phone, you spend a lot of time customizing it, changing settings, transferring files, just to get it exactly how you want. So the battery life is going to fluctuate a lot. But once this message disappears, learning usage patterns, then you can be sure that the battery is going to be properly optimized for you. While battery life has been excellent on this phone and I easily get a day of use, there is one thing that I wanted to point out. So if you look at point number 22, where it says typical value tested under third-party laboratory condition, typical value is the estimated average value considering deviation in battery capacity. So it says the rated capacity is 4,275 milliamp hours. Now, in all the advertising, it's 4,400, but there is going to be some variance, but at minimum, you're guaranteed a rated capacity of 4,275. So there may be some variance in terms of your battery life and someone else's, just due to that. So after charging the Fold 4 for about 10 minutes, we jumped 14%, so we started at 80% and we finished at 94%, and the wattage was around 13 to 14 continuously. This phone's rated for 25 watts of fast charging, and I normally get between 13 and 14 watts whenever I've tried to charge it. I am using a third-party charger, but it is rated for 45 watts, and I do get faster charging speeds on the S22 Ultra, so I know that charger is not defective. If you're getting faster charging speeds than I am using the official Samsung charger, please let me know. Here's a quick sound test of the speakers on the Fold 4 and the S22 Ultra, and the Fold 4 just has a fuller, louder sound to me. So here we go. So overall, you can hear that the Z Fold 4 has just a fuller sound and a louder sound. And if you take a look at the speaker grills, you can see these are quite wide and you have them top and bottom. Since there's no under display fingerprint sensor, you have to unlock the phone either with face unlock, a pin pattern, or your fingerprint, and that works well. You can do it while the phone is completely closed or open. So you've likely heard about range anxiety when it comes to using an electric car. Now, for those of you who have fold anxiety, so this is rated for 200,000 folds, and at first I wasn't happy with that number. It seemed a bit low, but when I did the math, that equals to about 100 folds daily for the next 5 years. And the average person opens their phone 30 to 80 times a day. Now, it's probably even going to be less, especially for someone like me, because I normally go to the cover screen first. I'll take a look at any notifications that I have, check any messages, play some word games or whatever. And then if I want to watch something big like on YouTube, or I want to write like a big email or check an attachment, then I'll open it up. So, I'm not opening this multiple times throughout the day. It's only for select occasions. So the 200,000 fold rated capacity, I think it's going to be quite fine. When it comes to opening and closing the phone, this hinge really does function very well, but this is a two-handed operation. I don't see how you can do it with just one hand. It's sufficiently tensioned that you need two hands. Now, one word of caution is that, if you're watching video, there are times where you may rotate the phone to change the aspect ratio, and just be mindful that when you're ready to close it, you can see right now the hinge is here. You can't force it, so you always have to be mindful to rotate it back to the right orientation and then safely close it. While I was hoping to have the official case from Samsung and the S Pen for this review, it still hasn't arrived at the time of shooting, but I was able to go down to the Samsung store and I used the Fold edition of the S Pen, and I can say it's just as responsive, just as fluid as using it on the S22 Ultra, so you're not going to have any issues there. For those of you who are really looking forward to seeing how the official case fits on the phone and the S Pen performance, I will make a quick video when I do receive those items, and I'll make an unlisted video and I'll just share it in the comments. For those of you who own the S22 Ultra right now and you're trying to decide, should you trade this in for the Z Fold 4? Well, what I would say is, if you were happy with the performance of your S22 Ultra before the Fold 4 came out, then it's probably fine to just keep your S22 Ultra. I know I was really happy with the performance of this. Now that I've used the Z Fold 4, tested it in a bunch of things, I'm still really happy with the S22 Ultra, and I would have no problems to keep on using this. And consider the following that the S22 has that the Z Fold 4 does not. So the S22 Ultra has an official dust rating where the Fold 4 does not. You also have a 230 millimeter lens, so you can get very tight shots, or you can zoom in a lot, and you don't have that option on here. That lens is missing. As well, this is a thinner and lighter phone overall. That might matter to you. It is a larger battery at 5,000 milliamp hours, and you have the S Pen built directly into the body, so you don't need to carry a special case to carry around the S Pen. There's no S Pen with this phone, and to carry it you have to buy a case. So overall, I think the S22 Ultra is still a really excellent phone, and I wouldn't rush to trade this in unless you really find yourself, needing extra screen real estate, or if you're constantly splitting apps or jumping between apps. In that case, it may make a difference to you, but overall, it's still an excellent phone overall, and I'm sure, you can definitely ride it out till the S23 to see if it's worth the upgrade then. So can I recommend the Galaxy Z Fold 4? And what I would say is that if this is the first foldable phone that you're considering, then this is probably a great time to take a look at Samsung's offerings. I haven't owned the previous ones, but from what I've heard, this is a pretty great improvement in a lot of areas, especially the cameras. Now, this feels completely polished. It feels really premium in the hand. It's just sturdy overall. And this hinge is rated for, about 4 to 5 years of life, or 200,000 folds. And most people are upgrading their phones within 4 to 5 years for sure. So I don't think it's ever going to be a concern as long as you're, trading this in before that time. Now, a phone like the S22 Ultra has a really big screen already. But if you find yourself, kind of hoping for a little bit more on your S22 Ultra, or the ability to split apps and have a bit more screen real estate, then this is probably a good option for you. Alright guys, so I hope this review was helpful and just gave you a little bit more information about this phone, and if it's worth it for you, and if it's worth trading in your S22 Ultra for this phone. And if there's anything I missed or anything you're unsure of, please leave it down in the comments down below. I do my best to reply to everyone. If you found this video helpful, please consider liking and subscribing. I'm going to be making a follow-up video with just some quick tips and settings to adjust on the phone to get the most out of it. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.